Thank you, gentlemen, for making time for us this afternoon. It was a very busy period of the year for you in the next coming weeks, an election facing Danbury. And we thank you for taking some time out of your day to meet with the editorial board of the Newstimes. This is an annual event here. It's a great chance for us to talk about the issues facing the communities we cover, and a good time for our readers and today viewers to see your comments and hopefully a lively debate. The format will be pretty informal. We ask that you keep your answers to just a couple of minutes, and if necessary, please ask for a rebuttal if you think this is important. We'll go back and forth. Each of the members of our editorial board will be asking a question today, and there'll be a story, I believe, in tomorrow's paper about today's meeting, and online the video may be up tomorrow also.
That'll be up tomorrow as well.
Okay. So we'll be promoting that back to the paper. I understand this is one of the few opportunities the community has to have you both together. So again, this is an important hour, and try to keep it brisk moving forward. If you can, briefly describe your backgrounds as it relates to the position of mayor and why you're running for the position. Mark, would you like to go first?
Sure. Just briefly, I was born and raised in the city of Danbury. I was educated in Danbury Public Schools. I went to Danbury High School. I served a brief stint in the Army Reserve for 6 years. I was educated at the Central Connecticut State University. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Education. I have a master's degree from Western Connecticut State University with a concentration in educational psychology. I served as a social studies teacher at the Danbury Public School System for 14 years. While I was doing that, I became active and involved in local politics a little bit because my father had been involved prior to me. I served on the city's planning commission, then ran for the state legislature in 1998. I was elected to the state legislature in 98, 2000. Then in 2001, Mayor Arquez decided he didn't want to run for mayor again, and I jumped in and was elected in the fall of 2001, and I've been serving in that capacity for the last 8 years. Question being, why do I want the job? When I started this job in 2001, I set out with some priorities, and I continued to work on those priorities, and moving an organization as big as the City of Danbury's organization is always a challenge, but it's been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. I want to continue to make Danbury a great place to live, work, and be educated in. I enjoy this community. I love living here. Being mayor of Danbury is probably one of the highest honors that I've ever had in my life, except the day I got married. And every day when I walk in the office, I'm proud to be the mayor of this city and of this community. This is a great community with great people. We've laid out some important initiatives for the next 2 years, specifically designed around planning and putting together strategic plans while we wait for the economic darkness to clear, if you will. And so I look forward to executing those plans once things once funds are available, and to be able to continue moving the city forward. We've had some outstanding successes in the past. Things like the 10-year plan to end homelessness is one of my most proudest moments, to being able to implement one of those plans and being one of the first communities in the state of Connecticut to do that. In addition to that, we've built a new police station, new parking garage, 2 new elementary schools, new parks, acquired open space. All those things we've done with an eye towards cost and efficiency, and with a long-term, big strategic plan towards creating a 21st century city.
Thank you. Gary.
Sure. Well, I was also born and raised in Danbury, and also graduated from Danbury High, the grade class of 1972, but don't do the math. As was my family, by the way. They were born and raised here. I have 3 children, 25, 22, and 19, the baby is at this point. After graduating high school, I actually went to work in the job market and sold insurance for 5 years with John Hancock Life Insurance, and led the district in sales. It was at that point I got introduced to politics by some of the people in the office, namely, one was Tony Arconti. Of course, he was a big supporter of not only his brother Gino, but also, Bill Ratchford. So I got that occasion to work behind the scenes in some of the elections, and I have continued that trend. Then I left the insurance business and actually went to work in the corporate world. I started with a company called General Reinsurance in 1980, and I've been with them ever since, going on 30 years. Right now I'm a vice president of global finance, and General Re, for those who don't know, is the third largest reinsurer in the world, and we actually underwrite for profit, which is not usually seen in the insurance industry. So we are very disciplined and very rigorous about how we spend money and how we, go out and price contracts. I should say also that I was educated at Naugatuck Valley Community College. I have an associate's degree in business from there, and I finished up my my bachelor's degree at the University of Bridgeport, so I have stayed local. And again, you asked why I'd want to be mayor. Again, not only do I feel that I have the credentials, the business background, and everything, and the things that I do every day, negotiating with people, certainly communicating with people, getting things done on a daily basis. I believe I've got the credentials to be the mayor of Danbury. And frankly, I think there's a lot of things here that need to be tweaked. I think there's, the years of tax increases and big ticket borrowing are out there. I think we have to concentrate on the economy and aggressively attract and retain jobs for our citizens here. I'm very, very concerned about the education dollars that have not been going into the classroom. As I've said, through General Re, I've had the occasion to travel quite a bit throughout the world, and I visited the countries that we're outsourcing to, and I'm very impressed with their young people who are, again, bright, very well educated, and frankly hungry. So I think that we need to retain teachers, and we need to put money into the classroom, and we need to do some creative things like charter school for the arts, an academy of math and science, so our kids can successfully compete in this global economy with again, very bright and well educated children from all over the world. I think fourth, again, I think traffic is a real problem in this city. It's been for a long time. It's not been rectified as yet. And I think I've got some ideas on how to make traffic better. And traffic is not only an economic development problem, but I believe traffic is also a health and safety issue. And there's far too many roads in this city that are neighborhood roads that are being used as main thoroughfares. So I think that's got to change.
One of the purposes of this meeting is for us as an editorial board to be thinking about which of you are going to endorse on Sunday, November 1st. And I want to give both of you the opportunity to make a clear-cut argument for why it should be you. And I'll frame it in this way. If you are elected mayor on November 3rd, cite 3 specific ways, programs, projects, philosophies, direction of the city, that will be very different from the way the city would go if your opponent is elected. And Gary, we'll start with you.
Well, as I've said, the first thing I would do is concentrate on jobs in the city of Danbury, as opposed to my counterpart. I think that we need a full-time professional economic development director who will aggressively attract and retain the jobs within the community and work with, again, as I've said, the existing Small Business Development Center to help small and medium-sized businesses prosper in this city, because we have far too many storefronts empty at this point. And as your recent Newstimes article pointed out, poverty level has shot up in this city. I think we need to do a better job with tax increases. I think we've seen a steady stream of tax increases through this administration's tenure. And again, if you go to the budget books, they're there. I don't care about one-off examples such as my own, where my taxes may have gone down $68 in 1 year. I think the burden of the tax increases have hit the commercial real estate owners in Danbury, and again, I've got examples to cite on that. And I think, again, the big-ticket borrowing, I still have a problem with the police station. I just think we spent too much money on it. It's just too opulent. And, the whole idea behind a new police station was not only to get them out of the cramped quarters they were in, but also to put more police on the street, as the mayor has said before. So the question is, we've got the new station. When are we going to do some new hires in the police station to get out on the streets of Danbury? Again, the third thing probably is education. I'm very concerned. Again, the priority of these things may flip, but I think rather than reduce positions in the school system, I think we have to retain educators. And again, this was the first year that, and probably in city history, that the school board budget was not increased with local tax dollars. So again, the school board had no choice but to force an early retirement, and we lost most of our experienced teachers, leading to larger class sizes. And I'll cite an example. As I was knocking doors the other day, somebody was telling me that her honors English class, her daughter's honors English class, has 37 kids in it. So, to me, that's just crazy. And again, I've talked about my desire to do something about the traffic, and also to make it easier to attract businesses to Danbury, and making it easier for people to get the jobs and get work done.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
I think the number one challenge facing any city or municipality in the state of Connecticut right now is probably the greatest economic challenge facing all communities since the Great Depression, and that is what we call the Great Recession. And so every community, every city and town in Connecticut is going to have to look at ways of reinventing themselves. The days of doing business the way we used to do it, just because that's the way we always used to do it, are gone. And the sooner I think that all of us come to realization of that, the better off we would be to make the adjustments that need to be made to be able to deliver the core services that our government is responsible for delivering, but also to continue to build on some of the successes we've had. What that's going to have to mean is that we're going to have to, and one of the first things that what I've been doing and continue to do will be to continually assess our departments and the way in which we deliver services. Are there better ways that we can do things? Can we collapse departments? Can people wear different hats? Can people share duties and responsibilities across the organization? Can we cross-train certain individuals to take on certain duties and functions? The number one driver in our budget, like any budget, is salary, benefits, and wages. The more that we can do that, and the more that we can become even more efficient than we are. We run a very flat, efficient organization as it is. And I'll give you some examples. Greenwich, for example, has less people than we do, and they have about 500 more municipal employees. So the fact of the matter is, now Greenwich is Greenwich, of course, and they did run a deficit last year, but the bottom line is that we have an incredibly flat organization, but we have to continue to look at ways to deliver services and to automate services as well, and also to outsource key services that maybe we're not really equipped to be able to handle on a long-term basis. That's a challenge that's going to face every single municipality. It'll be budgetary in nature, and there will be issues in terms of school budgets, in terms of municipal budgets. The state is already running a deficit, so that's going to filter down to us. I expect state aid to decline, not to go up. One of the things that I've been working on and continue to work on is with the Statewide Superintendents Association through Dr. Pascarella to begin to present some ideas of ways that we can whittle a lot of the state mandates down that put incredible pressures on our local budget. Some of them are not necessarily kid-driven, they may be more administrative-driven, but they cost, and they cost big dollars. So those are the kinds of things that we have to continue to focus on immediately. We also are actively working at civilianizing our police department, which will be a way that we can put more officers on the street without having to hire more officers. It's cheaper to hire a civilian than it is to hire a police officer. And currently a lot of our officers do really what are civilian functions, and they'll tell you that themselves. For example, they answer the phone or they greet people when they come in. We're in the process right now of hiring our first payroll specialist, which will be really our first true pure civilian employee, except for the records division in the police department. And that was a job that was done by a lieutenant, and we paid a lieutenant $80,000 a year to track overtime and to track folks' hours. And so those are the kinds of things that we'll be able to do that will get officers on the street, because the lieutenant will now be redeployed out and to do the things they like to do most, which is police. In addition to that, We'll continue to work on some of our task force that we already have rolling. The Main Street Renaissance Task Force is one of my favorite. We've been working very hard at developing a long-term strategic plan that will span administrations. And I think that all mayors come into office with the best intentions for Main Street, but what happens is that generally decision-making is done in a vacuum of that administration, and it's not looked strategically over a 10-year or 15-year period. And so when that plan is done, I hope to be able to implement some of the recommendations that maybe don't cost any money, zoning issues, rules and regulations, things like that. Tick off the items I can during my next 2 years, and if I decide to run again, great. If I'm elected, great. If not, I'll pass that plan on to the next mayor and say, okay, I've completed 1, 5, and 7. We still got 3, 4, and 6 to do. And so that plan will be passed through administrations, updated. It'll be a breathing document, but it'll really be something to work from that will be fit in with our comprehensive plan of development that we already have. But it'll be specifically just to Main Street and City Center. I'd also look for the Common Council to adopt the plan as well as the Zoning and Planning Commission, so there's buy-in from really all political parties and all folks that are involved in the planning loop in terms of making decisions. In addition to that, we're working on our fire department, and our fire department headquarters is aging, and while, again, this won't be the time to roll out any big new projects. It will be the time to plan. And we're looking at collapsing a lot of our volunteer fire departments, particularly the city-owned ones, because we're paying for those buildings to be maintained, the volunteer fire departments. There's a cost there. They're aging buildings. They're incredibly inefficient. And they're having a hard time attracting volunteers. So we've engaged in a collaborative process with the volunteers themselves, with our union, and our chiefs, our command staff, to be able to develop a long-term strategic plan for the fire department that will, at the end of the plan, result probably in an enhancement of the infrastructure of the fire department as well, and will be more efficient. So those are some of the key things that I'll be working on upon taking office again.
Okay, thanks. Jackie?
RBA, just
Sure.
say something to that? Sure. The mayor talks about efficiency in government, and again, he has raised the budget of the city of Danbury in the 7 years from $149 million to $202 million, and for that, the citizens have seen, their core services decrease. City Hall closed on Fridays, which as some people here know, I had a press conference at City Hall a couple Fridays ago, and you wouldn't believe the number of people that come, get out of the car, and pull on a locked door. So while the hours during the week may have been extended, they're not convenient to the public, and I understand that many of the employees at City Hall are not happy with the way these extended hours are working. Also, we've seen the library cut. The library hours cut, and again, the library is not only a great place for parents and for children to go, but it's also a place in this economy where we've got a lot of adults who are not working and rely on those computers to look for work. So I think again that's a service I'd like to see increased. And the mayor was talking about police efficiency, with the new station and maybe with the advent of hiring some civilians. But, what I'm understanding from some of the officers on the force, that the new police station actually took one more officer off the street because now you needed somebody to man the front. And also, it's kind of inefficient when you have to, you bring somebody in the Sally Port downstairs, then you got to run up to the first floor, do your report, get a supervisor to sign off on it, and then you got to go upstairs to get the shift commander on the third floor to sign off on it, and then you got to go back down. So, to me, that doesn't seem like a very efficient process. But again, these are things that, with my corporate and business background, that we would look at and hopefully try to make better.
Mark, do you want to respond?
Well, yeah. Obviously, we've offered more services than any other administration in the history of this city. We rolled out a City Line 311 program that's designed specifically and built around efficiency to track customer complaints, to solve problems, to get back to a customer when they have an issue with a pothole or with a tree down or whatever the situation might be. So the fact of the matter is that we have more services than ever before. We are open more hours, and I can't think of a time any more convenient for a resident than to be able to come at 6 p.m. at night and do their business versus having the door closed on you at 4:30 in the afternoon and not opening it till 8:30 in the morning. We're open from 7:30 in the morning till 6 p.m. And on Thursdays we're open from 7 to 6:30. So we get a lot of traffic between, say, 7 and 9 a.m. before people go into work, and people have been very appreciative of those expanded hours. I'll also say that we don't make decisions based on necessarily, while we try to work collaboratively with our employees and our collective bargaining units, we don't necessarily let them drive the agenda as to when City Hall will be open. That's a decision made by myself in conjunction with our senior staff as to what we think is best for the residents, not what's best for the employees. That is the focus of our work. They pay our salaries, and that's what we're supposed to be doing.
Thank you. Jackie?
Both talked about the need for creating new jobs, helping businesses locate here and grow. And I'd like to know more about how you plan to do that. Specifically a question, though, there's talk about the Super 7, which would put a 4-lane highway between Norwalk and Danbury. And I'd like to know your position. We'd like to know your position on that, how it might impact business, but also how it might impact the quality of life.
Mark?
Since it took them 80 years to widen Super 7 as it is now, I don't expect any major construction to go on anytime soon. I understand there's the State Senator Dan DeBasella is pushing, or no, is it DeBasella? It's one of the state senators from the Duff, right? From the area is pushing for that. At this point, I'd really like to see how the current widening works and whether or not that provides enough access to Lower Fairfield County for our residents. We do have a significant amount of residents that do commute back and forth to Stamford. I think Gary's one of them. So, I mean, there has been a need for added lanes there, and certainly that was one of our most dangerous roadways, state roadways in the community. But big picture, I don't think necessarily widening the road is the way to approach this. We have a rail service. We ought to look at expanding rail. We ought to make rail convenient for people. We ought to make rail cost-effective. It's been a little frustrating for me to participate in the rail study over the last 6 or 7 years because the federal government astonishingly spent $5 million to figure out that it's going to cost you $2 billion to convert from diesel to electric. When we started, that rail line was electric at one point, so it's just sort of mind-boggling. But having said all that, there certainly can be an emphasis on rail service, and north to New Milford as well. Every year I was in the legislature, I would put in a bill to open up rail service from the Danbury Main Street station, or Danbury Way Street station, up to New Milford, to be able to take the load off of Route 7 North as well. So I just don't see that's a project that the state needs to take on. And frankly, given their track record, I'd really like them to focus on completing the projects they've already started. And I just don't have a lot of faith and confidence right now in their ability to execute that kind of plan.
Yeah, Mark is right. I do commute to Stamford. I have for just about 30 years. I mean, it was a brief stint at Trumbull, but and I can tell you that there's no easy way to get down there without taking a significant amount of time and toll on your personal life. By the way, I think I'm not sure that a Super 7 is actually needed. I think this road widening might accomplish what they need to do there. I think it will streamline the traffic flow between Lower Fairfield County and us. I think which gives us, of course, a great strategic position because of our location on the New York border to attract businesses. I think Danbury is located in a great position right now. We're on the New York border. We're between Boston and New York. So I think, again, there's a lot of amenities in this city that could be attractive to businesses. As I've said, just diverting from Route 7 a little bit, again, I think you all realize, too, if you've taken the highway at night between, 3:30 and 6 o'clock, and you'll see the bottlenecks between various exits. And, again, people they jump off the highway and they get onto our local roads. So I think traffic congestion overall is something we need to deal with. And, again, I am totally for rail service to New York. I think it's very inconvenient that people have to travel to Brewster to do their shopping there, and conversely, that anybody who wants to come up here, it's a real impediment to coming up here to our great mall. The other thing is the mayor mentioned about projects already started, and again, I'll go back to the fact that I think in the 90s we were approved for 4 lanes from Seeger Street to Driftway Point Road, which again, that's another bottleneck in the area. And that money's never come in. We've had 2 Republican governors and a Republican administration here in the city. So I would be strongly in favor of, being fairly loud and vocal about trying to attract those dollars to Danbury and, making the case that we will use the money wisely and it will help our economy.
Okay, thank you. Brian?
Gentlemen, for years in this city, we've spoken about really dovetailing a network, including the police, fire, EMS, public works, and so forth. And it seems to me that there is space to do this now at the new police station as well, and perhaps tapping other municipalities into this. My question for you is, I know there's 2 schools of thought as we discussed civilianizing parts of the police department earlier in this debate. Do you favor civilian dispatchers over, if not police dispatchers, perhaps some fire department representatives working as dispatchers, and if so, why?
Gary, you go first.
Sure, no problem. I don't necessarily have a problem with civilian dispatchers as long as they are very well trained, as well trained as our, professionals are today. I think, to put another firefighter on the street or another policeman on the street makes sense to me, and hopefully the cost would be, less. I believe that, I would like to create a central location for, police and fire administration, civil works, I don't know, I'd have to think about that a little more, but police and fire administration and dispatch, I think, because so many times, when we dispatch one department, the other department, will come along as well. So I think that'd be a great idea. And I think we could gain some economies. Again, we've outgrown the headquarters down on New Street, and as you said, Brian, and I've taken the tour of the police station, there is certainly, with 75,000 square feet, there's a lot of room in there for maybe expansion and of the fire administration and dispatch. And of course, as you all know, the fire administration and dispatch, that system was literally taken from the garbage. So it's very outdated. I think that's one of the Achilles heels of our fire safety. So I would be a big advocate of bringing it into the police station and taking advantage of the newer technology.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
In 2001, when I proposed building a new police station, I also spoke about the need for centralized dispatch, which is really what you're talking about. We embarked on a 3-step process to get there. Step 1 was to build a station that could accommodate a true civilianized dispatch. The idea being we would take police officers who are currently doing dispatch, put them back out doing what they love best, which is being police officers. Step 2 would be the studying of that and developing a strategic plan. That police station was 3.5 years in the making by some of the best architects and designers and engineers in the country. In fact, our building has been looked at because of the process that we set up in that building and how we handle things like the Sally Port and writing records, which are done downstairs and not done upstairs in that building, specifically to accommodate the workflow of what a police officer has to do. The step 3 part of this will be for a radio system. We want to get a centralized radio system that will be able to handle fire, police, and public works all in a single set of frequencies. This is about we conducted a study. The study cost us several $100,000. This is about a $12 million project because we have to require easements and put up new towers to be able to accommodate full coverage. What our goal would be 98% coverage of the 44 square miles that Danbury entails. So that would be one piece. It would be the infrastructure piece. The second piece would be the actual civilization of that facility. It's already set and designed for that. Step 1 would be to slowly infiltrate the department with civilians. We've advertised for something called a public safety advocate. That position would be a civilian position, which would take the officer out of the front desk, which is not a new practice. We've been doing it at the old police station forever, and put that officer back out into patrol. And so that round-the-clock coverage would be covered by civilian. We've got a great pool of candidates. We're in the process of interviewing. That'll be our first step. Once those folks are trained up, we then want to migrate them upstairs into dispatching. But first, there's a state school you have to go to be a certified dispatcher that we would take them to. But police, fire, public safety has a unique culture, and we want folks to be fully vetted and fully understand the culture of public safety services before we stick them upstairs answering calls. The next step will be to move the PSAP, which is a public safety access point, from the fire station, which is your 911 call center, over to the new building. That requires fiber optic lines, which we've just received a state grant for, and we'll be in the process of installing those fiber optic lines. Then we'll migrate our firefighters or fire dispatchers, or the 911 operators, to the new the room that you've toured and seen. We'll operate it with firefighters and police officers for a period of time, and then we'll go ahead and migrate to full civilianization. But I will tell you, there's a short-term cost to civilianizing. You need 26 employees to cover that facility 24/7. So that's about a $2 million investment by the city in civilianization to be able to do that. Still cheaper than hiring police officers, but still it's a bump in the budget that you're going to have to accommodate. We did apply for a grant under the stimulus package. We're waiting to hear back because we think this is great job creation and really what we're supposed to be doing with the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act. And we're waiting to hear back on the status of that grant as we also apply for more police officers under that grant as well. And that grant program, the feds will pick up the first 2 years, so that'll be a nice savings for us, and then year 3 we'll have to pick up their full salary benefits and wages. So that's where the plan stands right now, and we're in the process of implementing that and rolling that out. It's key. 90% of all departments in the state of Connecticut have civilian dispatching and civilianized most of their administrative functions. We're a little bit behind the curve on that this time we did it.
Thanks. Ralph, did you want?
Yeah, Gary, I believe you mentioned economic development director before, and I think this is an area where you have different opinions on that. So I'd like to hear from each of you how you believe that position should be developed and what you believe the scope of the duties should be for that job.
Well, I'll go first. I believe, again, that we need a professional economic development director. I think we need somebody in there that can speak the language of corporate business, that can go out and actually not wait for businesses to express an interest in Danbury, but actually go out and aggressively, attract business to Danbury, and also retain the businesses that are in Danbury. As we know, over the last few years, we've lost a lot of small, medium-sized businesses in town. And again, I think we need to have a professional on a full-time basis working with these people. It's fine to have the mayor involved with the discussions. It's fine that the CEOs of these companies would want to speak to the CEO of the city as well. But I think we need somebody at full time since jobs in the economy are such a big deal at this time. I think it's an investment well worth making. And I think again that person would be responsible for going out and contacting businesses, finding out which businesses in other cities perhaps are looking to relocate because of perhaps rental issues or things like that, and really appeal to our location, as far as closeness to Westchester County and other things, to really, and work with the Chamber of Commerce. I think that's one of the biggest things. Work with the Chamber very, very closely, and actually City Center Danbury, and make sure that we populate the stores that are empty today, and, again, report directly to the mayor, and, add a good person to a staff in a city that I believe needs it. I'm not an advocate of coordinators' roles nor 15-week political favor, 15 hours per week political favors. So that would be my stance.
Mark?
Well, I think in an era when we're trying to, in the Hat City, get more people to wear hats, we're uniquely positioned because we have somebody who served in that position well, Wayne Shepard, that can handle some of the day-to-day duties related to economic development. I've advocated that we bring in a part-time person to assist that, and there's a lot of terrific talent. We've advertised for the position, and we have a lot of people out there that are interested in taking on the position. The prime focus would be outreach and recruitment, which we do on a daily basis as well. And that's important to have a point of contact. and they also be a liaison to a real small business development center that we locate on Main Street, where people could actually walk in off the street. That would be staffed. That would be a partnership between Western Connecticut State University, the Chamber, the city, where folks could get business mentoring and coaching. We could locate SCORE there, which is our retirees that are currently located in City Hall, who coach business. We could help people develop business plans. We could help people do everything from translate menus to learn how to fill out a loan application for their business, so that we can see businesses that are successful on Main Street and that will have sustainability over the long term. We'll work with our local banks to partner and create a pool of money for capital investment. Draw from and replenish as they pay it back. And the idea being that more than 50% of the residents of this city are employed by small and medium-sized businesses, and so those businesses have been the hardest hit in the current economic downturn. So that really would be the vision as to how we would enroll that position. And I did say in the debate Wednesday, and I still believe this, is that the chief advocate, the best cheerleader for this city is the mayor. And at the end of the day, people don't want to talk to economic development directors. The CEO wants to walk in and meet the mayor and find out whether or not they're going to be able to expand their business here in the city of Danbury. And I did that with Boehringer Ingelheim, where we were able to create 800 jobs in 2002, and we didn't have an Office of Economic Development. I spent a lot of time over at BI meeting directly with Marty Carroll and his team to be able to move them into the Matrix Corporate Center, which we're now allowed to refer to as the old Union Carbide building. That's really the old Union Carbide building. It's the Matrix Corporate Center. And the BI has had a substantial presence in there for training and for their sales force. We also did that with Mankind when I met with there's a Mr. Mann from California, where we expanded their facility on Casper Street, where they added approximately 200,000 square feet. And when they're actually manufacturing their Afresa, which is their insulin, they'll be able to employ 700 new employees here in Danbury. We did that with Praxair, where we signed a 20-year agreement with them to keep them here in Danbury, located at the Matrix building, as well as helped Cardis with their own expansion back in 2005. All those things required the presence of the mayor, and they wanted the mayor in the room with them. And in terms of in the community, again, I just want to emphasize the chief cheerleader really is the mayor, and having an upbeat, positive attitude about Danbury, believing in this community, believing in the people. You do need a coordinator, though, that'll be able to vet some of the folks that come in on a day-to-day basis that maybe don't have business plans that are quite laid out or quite haven't really thought through what they want to do. And that's really where that point of contact would be, and where the assist would be provided, and the link would be provided to what I would foresee a freestanding, standalone small business and medium-sized business development center.
I just want to say one thing. My belief was that the chamber already has a small business development center, through the SBA. So just a little confused about why we'd be establishing one.
They do, and the vision would be that we would bring that center over into the new one and marshal some more resources. It doesn't have a very high profile. We have a lot of folks that struggle with English as not their first language, so we need folks that are bilingual or trilingual. In some cases, I have somebody in my office who amazingly is trilingual. But those will help those individuals that come in with maybe a really unique, creative, entrepreneurial business idea, but they have a hard time migrating the idea to a workable, sustainable plan that's going to make them some money. And at the end of the day, we want to make them money because they'll hire employees and they'll put people back to work.
The editorial board of the Newstimes is very interested in the downtown, as I know both of you are, and we're also interested, obviously, in the overall economy and vibrancy of the city. The loss of professional hockey in Danbury for the coming season, is certainly a blow. How big a blow is that? What role can or would you like to play in bringing professional hockey back to Danbury? And in the same context, other programs or projects like the Westerners and the film festival, what kind of role should the city play, and what kind of personal role should the mayor play in making sure that those programs are successful in Danbury? I think, Mark, it's your turn to go first.
Okay, well, two things. One, I just want to reiterate that we do have a task force chaired by John Klein with a lot of buy-in from the stakeholders at Main Street that are participating on that. And they're looking at things like key issues and policies. I mentioned that earlier, zoning issues, things like that. Economic development, which I think a walk-in business development center would be helpful there. Community activities and design plays a role in that. Historic preservation is something we're getting ready to roll out, as well as public improvements and investments. We've surveyed the stakeholders, we've met with the key developers in the area, and we've also reviewed other downtown plans throughout the country, really. In terms of hockey, I think the city can be the facilitator. And, the tragedy, if you will, for a lot of fans anyways, of the Galante investigation was the demise of the Trashers, which reinvigorated to an extent the downtown, which had an excitement that we've never had before in our downtown, where we filled that building with 1,500 to 2,000 people on a Saturday night for really high-quality hockey that was played in a pretty good league, and that was successful. It was the first time I heard restaurant owners downtown say this is like the best thing since sliced bread. So, what we have to do is we have to try to recreate that. The problem is that you can't do that and make money unless you've got the right lease at the ice arena, and that's always been the rub. It's how do you get best lease, and particularly the concessions are really where the money is. You don't make money in hockey by selling tickets. You make money by selling beer and food and peanuts and T-shirts and hats and all of the accoutrements that go with it. So that's really been the rub. And the last two teams, both the Stars and the most recent Mad Hatters. The Mad Hatters were a little bit better than the Stars, but they were underfunded. They're undercapitalized. They had poor business plans, and unfortunately, really were set up to not for failure. But they just didn't have the right ingredients to be successful. I don't think the city can invest specifically in hockey, but I think we can set the table. for success with the right ownership. I met with two separate ownership groups this summer, and I don't think either one of them was really sure exactly, where. I was concerned about the business plan. I don't think they were really understanding what they were taking on. What they were going to be undertaking and the responsibilities that go with that. Obviously, an affiliation with a major hockey team. NHL team would be outstanding, but sure that's really realistic. And I think we need to keep working it, and we have to just settle for the right group that certainly is going to be willing to take a loss the first year, but is trying to build something bigger. And there are folks out there willing to invest. And even with the last team, whose owner. Tim Copeland didn't live in Danbury, was from upstate New York. I had offered to take him around and set him up with potential investors and just kind of leave the room and put people together. But, the interest really wasn't there. So I thought there were some missed opportunities, but it comes to a point where you really can't interfere with private enterprise more than to sort of set the table and hope things work out in terms of hockey. But I also think the city has a profound role to play in terms of things at the Connecticut Film Festival. We had our second year this year. I know I've talked ad nauseum, I think, with Brian and with Dirk about this, but I was thrilled with the practitioners that were here, the people that actually do movies. I mean, I had one of the writers of The Simpsons right in City Hall. It was like the greatest thing, and it was like such an honor. I'm showing around the office and everything else, but I'm waiting for a Mayor Boughton depiction on the next shot at some point. I think I set myself up. But anyways, the point was that it was great. It was really cool. And there are people who flew from all over the country to attend that film festival because they were practitioners. They wanted to share their craft, talk about new ideas, and stimulate discussion. What we didn't have was, fans, and the residents of Danbury didn't buy into it. Part of that, I think, was marketing. Part of that, I think, was that it was a very confusing playbill for the week if you tried to make heads or tails where everything was shown. And I've talked to Tom about this. Nothing I haven't said to him before. We really struggled with moving people around within the city. We did seed that project with some money. I think it's worth seeding again if, under the right circumstances, we can address some of the concerns that the city has in terms of the way it was marketed and also the logistics of the particular week. But long term, big picture, we really need a strategic plan. Whether it's the film festival, whether it's hockey, and all those things can be part of a long-term strategic plan, and I think that'll provide the political will, the administrative support, and the public support to execute some of those projects for a healthier and more vibrant downtown. And if I can just say one other thing, and then I'll shut up. A key core component to downtown is having vibrant market rate housing. Whether it's seniors, whether it's students, whether it's resident, whether it's double income, no kids, families, whatever whatever shape that takes form. If you want to change downtown, you've got to change the economics of downtown. If you want to get a Starbucks here, Starbucks isn't going to come here unless we can show them and demonstrate them that they'll be viable, because there'll have people here that will actually buy the products. And I'm not talking about pushing people out. I'm not talking about gentrification. What I'm talking about is being able to interject a new mix, keeping what we have that's kind of cool, which I think is our ethnic diversity, working with those folks to market and broadcast their businesses in a wider way, so they're not just marketing to one ethnicity, but they're marketing to the entire community, because they'll make more money that way, and everybody's happy when they make more money. But also interjecting folks with discretionary disposable income to spend in our downtown. And you do that through market rate housing. That's why the city incentivized market rate housing, and that's why in the past, previous administrations have incentivized through tax breaks, through free land, however you want to describe it, market rate housing.
Okay, thank you. Gary?
Can I just finish my notes? Yeah, not only speaking about the ice rink, I think we need to have a professional team in that ice rink. I think it stimulated not only business for the ice rink, but also for the restaurants around the area who benefited greatly. Also, I would think that we would, as a community, I think we'd be a big supporter, as this was in the past, big supporter of the idea of bringing in a minor league baseball team. I think a minor league team would be great. I mean, especially now in the era where professional sports are almost unaffordable to the common fan. A minor league team would be an asset to this city, and I think we would have the support of the citizens to do it. The other thing my concern about the ice rink really is not only that we don't have a professional team there, but also, because we don't, the sustainability of the ice rink itself, if there's enough revenue generated without a professional team to sustain that, and that would be a tremendous blow to downtown if, that building could not be sustained. I think, talking about the redevelopment of the downtown, again, I think the administration in place has always talked about it, and nothing much has been done. We need, an economic development plan for downtown. We need to center new businesses around rail points and bus routes, and that benefits us in not only attracting new jobs and businesses, but also alleviating congestion, which we know is a problem. I think we've got to offer incentives for green construction, and quite honestly, the mayor had said this about a few years ago about green incentives, and I was surprised that the new police station did not have any solar panels. And again, I've talked about creating a charter school for the arts. I think the Palace Theater, we could work with Mr. De Silva in the Palace Theater maybe to house something like that, because we've got all the amenities there, and possibly dovetail that with the great theater group we have at Danbury High. So I think there's again, I agree with the mayor that we need a plan, and again, that's where I see an economic development director coming in and helping with that plan, working with the chamber and city center to make that happen. The other thing is the mayor mentioned about market rate housing, and again, although we've offered tax incentives to businesses, again, we've got the building that was built on Crosby Street has turned into an unsanctioned Westcon dorm, and there are a lot of apartments in that building empty at this point. And again, as we know, the old Amphenol site, that nothing really has been done, and it's fenced off because it's a contamination area. So I think we need to push these projects along and make sure that we do get the affordable market rate housing that was promised, and so we can attract people to live in downtown and frequent downtown. And the other thing is, I believe also Danbury is very fortunate to have a very diverse ethnicity. I think we need to build on that, both as part of a redevelopment plan, and also I think, as a mayor, I think you need to lead by example. I think we've got to frequent these places. I think we've got to show other people in the community that these places are good places to go, that the downtown is safe. And again, I go back to a police point I made the other day. I really would reinstitute the 16-member full complement of bicycle patrols, because I think they are very stealthy, and I think they did a great job and gave the general public a great sense of safety.
Can I just address quick thing? I just want to address the Crosby Street apartments. They are not unsanctioned by WestCon. They're very much sanctioned by WestCon and serve as an overflow housing. They're not owned by WestCon, but there's a very close relationship between the resident student life office at WestCon and providing referrals to that particular facility. And it's not. There aren't a lot of empty space there. It's built for 320 residents. There's approximately 280 that are living there right now, and it has spun off development right next door, where the owner of that particular facility has acquired the other building. He's currently renovating it to put in a new business in downtown, and that's really the whole point. Secondly, I happen to enjoy seeing young people jogging up and down Main Street, wearing their iPods, carrying backpacks back and forth to the university. I'd like to see more of that kind of housing scattered throughout the city to connect us to WestCon, which too often is isolated, and people don't look at it as a resource for our community. And I've spoken to Dr. Smatter about potential other projects that will bring and hopefully expand the borders of the Midtown campus by acquiring new buildings and new sites and being able to develop more student housing, whether it's apartments or straight dormitories, in our downtown. I think it's beneficial, and if you look at Soho Pizza across the street, Double Twister Ice Cream, those folks are incredibly happy with the 10% increase in enrollment at WestCon. They're doing very, very well. Those students spend money, and we ought to embrace them.
Gary, thank you.
A couple things. Well, it's not to the point about tax deferrals for market rate housing. These are not full-time residents. They are just students who come in, and it is not a state-sanctioned dormitory.
Okay. Dirk, we have time for one more quick question before the mayoral candidates ask each other questions.
I'm just curious, the fire department came up, and that's obviously one of the next big projects in the next 5-10 years or so. There's a committee that's researching exactly which way to go about it right now, build a new headquarters, renovate the old one, put volunteers in there. We get to see exactly what the committee is going to come out with. They just started the work, but how would you like to see that approached as far as that project? Would you like to see a new headquarters, renovation of the old one, or where would you like to see the fire department go with that?
Gary?
Well, I think, first of all, we need a plan, and I think, we've got a tremendous, not only career division within the fire department, but a great volunteer division. And of course, we know that there's 6 city-owned firehouses that need to be really consolidated. And I think all this has to be looked at. I don't believe there's enough room down on New Street to expand that location successfully. So I think, we're going to need to look at, and again, I think the whole situation has to be studied as well, to the point that, do we need a new facility? Or can we do some creative things like move dispatch and administration over to the police station and perhaps live with New Street as a career station. We've talked about the consolidation of the 6 volunteer companies, and again, we need to study that in detail, and we need to get, I believe, also the fire union involved and see what suggestions they would have. But I think when it comes down to it, public safety is something that I'm very concerned about. I think we do have an excellent police department and fire department, and I just want to make sure that we're doing enough as a city to make sure that not only our residents are safe, but the people who are making them safe, the firemen and the police, also have the equipment they need and the training to make sure that their lives are not jeopardized in any way.
Well, first of all, I'm proud to carry the endorsement of the Danbury firefighters. They voted to endorse my candidacy for re-election unanimously, and that's because they know I have the right plans for the fire department. And my plans are